Kennedi opened her eyes, glanced over at the digital clock radio, and then looked toward the textured ceiling. It was 7 a.m., only 20 minutes since the last time she'd awakened and checked to see what time it was, and she was terribly exhausted. Blake had packed a couple of suitcases and a garment bag and hadn't said a word until he was ready to leave for good, and even then, all he told her was that he'd be back for the rest of his things this weekend. Kennedi had wanted to talk to him, and even as foolish as it probably sounded, she wanted to beg him not to leave her. Not after what she'd considered 10 wonderful years of marriage, but instead, she hadn't said a word. What she'd done was watch him from the upstairs window, backing his Cadillac SUV out of the driveway. And then she tossed and turned and cried her eyes out until the wee hours of this morning. Now, she lay there wondering how she'd arrived at such a horrible place in her life. She wondered what she could have done differently, or, more importantly, how she could have been a better wife to Blake. She wondered when he'd fallen out of love with her and in love with another woman. He'd claimed that this had all occurred about 2 years ago, but Kennedi wanted to know exactly when. She wanted to know when and where he'd met her, the first time they'd officially spent time together, the first time they'd had sex. She wanted to know all the specifics of this wicked affair Blake had gotten himself caught up in, and she wanted to know who this homewrecker was. Not that any of this information was going to make Kennedi feel any better, but her curiosity was starting to consume her, and she couldn't think about anything else, not even the lottery jackpot she'd soon be the recipient of. Kennedi finally dragged herself out of bed and into the bathroom. Once there, she stood in front of the vanity, turned on the faucet, and waited for it to heat up,